listening to the Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. This week, I am joined by my guest, Megan Egan. Megan was actually a referral, a recommendation made to me from a previous guest, Tawny Cullen. She said, I think you guys will really hit it off. And she was absolutely correct. Megan was a lot of fun to talk to. I enjoyed hearing her story and her struggles and her little quips about what life has been like for her as a mom and living in Minnesota in the winter and being in the stage of being a daughter caring for parents while also being a mother caring for daughters. I'm excited for you to listen to everything that we talked about in this week's episode. Also, as a reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment, follow on Instagram, leave us a review wherever you stream or watch podcasts. That would be ever so helpful. I know for several episodes in September, there was an announcement at the front of the episodes about how my Facebook page had been shut down. Facebook still refuses to allow me entry. I am forbidden forever. However, there is a new Facebook page that has been set up for the podcast, managed by my dear sweet husband and local bestie here in South Dakota. If you can find it, I'll try to link it somewhere at some point. But the best way to stay in touch with me, because who knows what switch is going to be flipped at what point in the future, is to go to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. There you will get personal contact from me about once a month. No spam, no selling, no anything weird. It's just me checking in with you once a month. So go there and sign up. It would be much appreciated. And now that business talk is out of the way, we can get into this episode with my guest, Megan Egan. Welcome, everyone. I am so pleased to have Megan joining me today on the Motherhood Experience podcast. Megan is a friend and acquaintance of Tawny Cullen, whose episode was a couple of weeks ago. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You have been incredibly entertaining in our back and forth conversation. And so I'm excited to get into your motherhood story, but we start every episode with ages and stages. So tell our listeners the ages of children and the stage of motherhood you're in.
Of course. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter. So that's where we're at.
Our kids are almost the same age because I've got 14 and 10.
Okay. Yeah, they're 2.5 years apart, but we're sitting at 10 and 13 so far.
Yeah. There's so much in that sigh. We're going to unpack all of that later. So when you were growing up, did you always know you would be a mom?
I actually was just talking to the kids and my husband about this in the car the other day. And I told them, I used to always say when I was a little kid that I was going to have 4 kids. And they're like, well, how many kids did Dad want to have? I'm like, I don't know. It seemed like 0. But here we are at 2. So that seemed, everybody's good with that. And a dog.
That was the magic number.
He's kind of my consolation infant, stays permanently holdable size.
Well, how old is the dog?
He's 5.
Okay. So quite a range there of ages. What did you envision motherhood would be like? Were you kind of, with wanting the 4 kids, were you kind of thinking that you always wanted the big family, big gatherings?
So, all right, I became an aunt when I was 8. So I've been good with little kids all the time. So my sister is 14 years older than me. And so I started babysitting her kids right off the bat when her oldest was born when I was 8. My brother's 10 years older than me. And so she has 3 boys and my brother has 4. So there was lots of little kiddos. And then you're in charge of babysitting. So used to little kids. So I was ready for it.
Oh, wow. Is it just your older brother and sister and you?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So your first pregnancy, was it typical? Were there complications? Was it challenging?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story. I was going through in 2010, like suddenly the hardest year of my life, like slammed against a brick wall and just what is happening. So, anyways, not to get totally into all that, in the midst of seeking God and going to counseling and just trying to navigate life, the Lord said to me, I'm giving you an Ephraim blessing. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And turns out that was one of Joseph's children that he had in Egypt, and it means fruit in the wilderness place. And so he's like, I'm giving you a baby. And I'm like, okay. So at that point, I was working my career and my husband was working his career. And so I was like, okay, great. So sure enough, I got pregnant and had Adele in 2011, and it was definitely the fruit in the wilderness place. It literally like not only brought me out of the wilderness, it did that for like my whole family, and it was just like renewed joy for my parents. And so I did kind of have a heads up that that was coming, to say the least. But yes, that was like first try and a good pregnancy. I didn't have a lot of morning sickness. I was just really tired. So I'd like, come home from work and just go directly to bed, basically. And she was healthy, and well, she was 7 days overdue. So they induced me after 7 days, after I had tried everything you can look on the internet and every wives' tale, and walked miles and miles and miles and ate all the spicy food. And I don't know, you've probably tried them all too. And
Right.
she was like not coming out of her room, which shockingly happens a lot at 13 too. And so that was a tough labor getting induced, but I survived and she was healthy and beautiful, and away we went.
So what was it? I mean, you had this premonition, this revealing of an answer from the Lord, but what was it about actually entering into motherhood that kind of was a balm for all of the things going on in your life at that time?
I think it was just, she just brought so much joy to everybody. She's just the happiest baby, the smartest baby, the most beautiful baby, like, just everything you could ask for. And my family loves kids and babies, and it was just a new beginning.
So once that gate was opened, then did you think like, oh, well, here we go down this path. I'm going to get my 4 kids. This happened on the first time we tried, so it's going to be easy going forward.
Yeah, I mean, so my sister, like I said, she's older than me, and she had some issues, and my mom had talked about it a little bit to me. So I realized that it's not just like well, you just have a baby every time. But when we decided it was time to try for a second, it wasn't happening right away like before. And so now I realize that happens to a lot of people with their second try, that sometimes it's kind of a delay. But after, I don't even remember how long it was now, I wasn't getting pregnant. And so I went to the doctor and, asked all the things that you ask. And they were like, well, we're going to send you to the fertility place and whatnot. So I went to get all the tests that they do. And weirdly, on the forms, it's like, do you have an allergy to, what is it? Whatever the blue dye is called. I forget at the moment. But I remembered, okay, when I was a little kid, I had a kidney infection and I was in the hospital, and they went to give me the same blue dye. Why, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's beyond me. But, to do imaging on my kidneys, and I had this horrific allergic reaction and was like convulsing and shaking all over my body from what I remember as being a really little kid. And then like my memory of it is the nurse comes running in and like pushes me over and gives me an emergency injection in the butt cheek to stop the allergic reaction. I don't know, Benadryl or something. And so that was really kind of traumatic. And I was like, actually, I think I really am allergic to that dye. So I tell them about that, and they're like, okay, well, then this is as far as we can go. So whatever I had already done, that was the extent of what they could do without me having to not have to die. So I was like, well, that's weird, but okay. So then it was kind of on to like, well, you can send your husband in here. So he didn't love that idea. But as time went by and I kind of coerced him, he agreed to like go do whatever they wanted to ask him to do. So anyway, throughout this whole time period, again, I'm just seeking God and just, like, what's the deal? Is my womb closed? Is it something I've done? Is this just like hereditary? Is there, you know, all the questions that could ever go through your mind? Are we only supposed to have one kid? Are we, all the things. And I really felt like I got a really firm answer. No, like, but it's not by any means have I like closed your womb or punishing you or anything like that. And it was just kind of like this biology lesson from God. Like, so the way it works is there's one single egg and one single sperm that makes each individual person to be that specific person that they are. And everybody's different. Everybody is perfectly unique. And there's no one like that. And it just so happens that the person I'm trying to send you is like in queue. So just a minute. And I was like, oh, well, that took all the pressure off me thinking like, something's wrong with me. And now I can't even figure out what it is, or something's wrong with my husband, or all this stuff. I just let it go. And before my husband his appointment was scheduled, before he could go to his appointment, like it was something like the week he was supposed to go to that appointment, I had a positive pregnancy test. So 2.5 years later after we had our first. So here we are.
Oh, wow. Your first was like this, what was it? Fruit of the wilderness?
Yeah, fruit in the wilderness place. So like where the place where you would think there could be no fruit growing, you find fruit there. And that I believe it's Genesis, is called the Ephraim blessing.
To get the heads up on that, and then to kind of wander through this different wilderness right after that with regard to bringing another child into the world. You're kind of walking through this desert place to hear the Lord be like, this is on my time. You just need to
and he's basically
wait.
Like, would you chill out?
Yeah. We just do that every day with different things. I feel like that's such a beautiful picture of yeah, such a beautiful picture of what we encounter and just try to work through as moms anyway. But here it is playing out in your pregnancies and delivery of these kids. That's such a cool story.
Well, and don't you think it's funny, like, when you're like, how you had said, how many kids did you want to have when you were a kid? It's just a thing that people ask you and you just are ready with an answer for. And then when you're, seriously dating someone, then everybody's asking you, well, when are you going to get married? And how are you going to get married? And where are you going to get married? And you're just like, chill out. I don't know. Like, don't scare him off. And I don't know what he's going to ask me. And then right after you get married, everybody's asking, or like at your wedding shower, everybody's like, well, how many kids are you going to have? And when are you going to start trying? And are you going to have boys or girls? As if you have control over any of that. It's like everyone's delusionally thinking that it's like playing Barbies and you just pick out of the box what you want. It's so weird. Isn't it weird? It's like, stop.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about all of those questions that people ask, but at the same time, they're not keeping track and they don't really care. So why are they asking us all of these questions?
I don't know. And you can say whatever you want to say. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's what's going to take place. It's strange.
Right. Well, yeah, I said I was going to have 4 kids and I delivered 3, only 2 of them were living. I had 0 control over that. So I also had people like my parents. I said, don't get disappointed if I don't make you a grandparent. And they were like, yeah, whatever timeline.
And it's like if you had set this goal of 4 and then you came home with fewer than 4, are you supposed to feel like you like fell short of the goal or you failed somehow. It's like doing all I can do here, people.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of, I mean, I suppose that is a tactic that the enemy would use to chip away at you with, setting your own expectations
Yeah.
and then not having it work out that way regardless. So you
Yeah.
have two that are 2.5 years apart. What were they like as little siblings, and what are they like together today?
They're as different as my husband and I. And so when I was pregnant with Adele, distinctly remember laying in bed and my husband's sleeping and I'm awake and I'm just thinking how gorgeous he is. And I'm just like, Lord, would you please let this baby look like her dad? Because, like, he's so wonderful and beautiful and smart and kind and patient and whatever. Well, as it turns out, she looks just like her dad. Everybody notices that. And as they get older, it's more and more apparent that she's like his clone, but a girl. And all those same like giftings and talents and likes and dislikes. I mean, except she's not like huge into fishing right now at this age. And then our youngest is really obviously my mini me. So it's funny because I had like put in a request for our oldest to be like her dad. And then this one that was waiting in queue, he's like, just a second, I'm trying to get you your mini me now. When they were littler, well, I'll tell you, when at the hospital, when Grandma and Grandpa brought Adele to see the baby Willow and hold her and everything, her very first impression was, oh, she's so kind. I'm thinking maybe she had expected her to be screaming or something. I don't know. Maybe she saw something on a show. I don't know. And then when she was just quietly laying there, she thought, wow, this isn't so bad. And then as
That's really
time
funny,
went on,
actually.
I started. Yeah, I don't think she thinks she's as kind now, unfortunately, but maybe they'll come back around to that. So then as time went on, I started to realize that they got along super well as long as Big Sister was calling the shots, like writing the script, picking the costuming, of what they're playing and dictating how it's going to go until Little Sister gets old enough to be like, well, what if I don't want to do that? And then the fireworks start. So, and we're still pretty much in that place right now. So they're their own people and they have their own likes and dislikes, and it is what it is.
Do you have one who maybe favors the spotlight or favors attention more than another?
So our older daughter has always been like a social butterfly, very talkative and outgoing, very social, very personable. In fact, we had some newer immigrants in our neighborhood, and they had asked me several times when the kids were like, 1, 2. She talks so much. Could she like do play dates with our kid to try to help our kid speak more and speak more English and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, all right, whatever. And now, like, you hear her talking to her friend, and she's still just as chatty and giggly and everything. But it's around us, it's like not much. Doesn't say much. And I don't know if you know, you said you have a 14-year-old. So, I mean, you kind of need to look on the internet to understand what they're saying to you. What did I just ask her about? Right before this, I was asking her, what does that mean? She goes, you're glazing. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm glazing? Like I'm glazing over? She's like, no, like you're overhyping something up, basically, was what it was. So, yeah. And then our younger one, she started out as a baby really introverted. And like she was in the ergo baby carrier thing till she was like 2, basically. And if as long as she was touching me,
Oh,
she
wow.
never cried, she never fussed, she never had a problem. She came home the first night from the hospital and was right next to me right here and just slept through the whole night. So we were like, whatever this is, let's just keep doing this because this seems to be working a lot better than what we did last time. So I remember when she was about 2, my mom was like, I can't believe she just came out of her shell. we didn't realize she was so like bubbly and had so much personality and whatever. Well, we had known that all the while, but apparently like she just hadn't revealed herself to the world yet.
So interesting. And yeah, we homeschool, and so I get some of the teenage slang,
So do
but
we.
not near the degree of like I didn't know what glazing was. I would have had to look that up. Sometimes if I say something to try to be funny, like I'll try to say slang or whatever, and she'll be like, please don't.
I know. I get that all the time.
What has been one of the more challenging aspects of being a mom to these two girls for you?
I don't know. I can be kind of a spaz, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. I The range of emotions is all over the board, and I don't know. I guess it can be a strength or a weakness, but basically I've just like a policy of being honest to a fault. And I don't mean like, I don't know if you remember the old movie with John Candy in it from the 80s. Anyways, his
Uncle Buck?
elderly mother in the movie is like, no, oh, what's it called? Anyways, she's like brutally honest. And so she always says, she's like his Irish mother, and she's always like, I'm just telling it like it is. But she's mean. I don't think I'm like that lady. We'll see when I'm in my 80s, but I mean, hopefully I'm not that bad. But I've realized the older that she gets that my older daughter is really sensitive. And so it's really hard when you're like perimenopausal and your daughter is going through puberty and you're trying to like not destroy her personality. I just like, and yes, we homeschool too. And so I'm teaching and I'm like, can you hear me? Am I a ghost? Can anyone see me? I'm trying to talk. Did I die? Am I like, oh my God. And then it's like, if I raise my voice at all, she's like, why are you yelling at me? Why are you mad? I'm like, I'm not yelling. This is just my normal talking voice. You didn't realize? I mean, we've been going at this for 13 years now. I talk loud. I use a lot of exclamation points. So, but it's like, get used to it. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you listening to me? Or she'd be like, why are you yelling? Why are you mad at me? I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm not yelling. I'm just loud. So I'm trying. I try to apologize a lot. I try to be quick to repent, and I try to do my best.
Yeah, I think with the oldest, especially I am an oldest, and so I have always said that because I am the oldest, I would always have the back of my oldest child, but now I find myself being like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it like this? What is happening between us right now? Because you should be able to figure this out. So what was it that, or I guess I should ask, did you always intend to homeschool, or is that just something that you kind of fell into over time?
Well, along with a lot of other people, we sort of fell into it in 2020. Our kids were going to a charter school locally, and during the distance learning, it just was not working. And it's not that I couldn't like get them set up, get them on their little Zoom call, have their worksheets ready. That it's the fact that for, whatever reason, like they weren't teaching math at all. That just went out the window. And it was just the bare minimum. And so I started to realize, all right, why don't I just homeschool them? I had homeschooled a little growing up. I'd kind of done a mix of everything. And so, but here's what I thought. I thought this is probably going to be horrible because I don't have a good teacher personality where I can be like, okay, friends, everybody sit crisscross applesauce. Please don't touch your neighbor, and just like hold it together like that for the entire time. Because I'm just an open book. Like, if I hate this, everyone's going to know, and then they're going to hate it. So either we're going to have to find something that I'm enjoying too, or this is going to ruin their lives. So I was just like, Lord, what should I do? And we just all were on the same page with it. miraculously. And I was really reluctant, but I researched it, and it was actually Tani who put me onto this YouTube video, and it was called The Different Flavors of Homeschooling. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I would recommend it to anybody. I've sent it to several people over the years. And basically, it uses the analogy of different flavors of ice cream, or like different styles of food. Like if somebody likes Italian food, or someone likes Asian food, or someone, whatever, that you don't have to just pick one, and you can find all these different there it tells you about all these different styles of homeschooling that are out there, which most people aren't aware of. And then you can mix and match, and you can figure out what's your child's learning style, what's your learning style, and then kind of meld it together. And then once I learned that, I was like, I felt it was really freeing for me. And then I realized, okay, it's not just one way of doing things. And so once we figured that all out, we really loved it. And actually 2020 ended up being like, we all look at it as like one of the best years we've ever had. So it was a fit.
Oh, that's fantastic. I have often said that I swore I would never homeschool, and then when we did start homeschooling, it was one of the best decisions we had ever made. We had a real honeymoon year that first year. I'm relating to a lot of what you're saying. I have not heard of that, but I'll link it. Is it a YouTube video, The Different Flavors of Homeschooling, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'll link that in the show notes. I'm one of those people though who, like, I need to know exactly what we're going to do during the day, and I want to check it off. And so we went with
Yes.
a different curriculum for that. But I have always longed for, I guess, how do I want to say this? I've always kind of longed for the freedom of eclectic homeschooling, but I just don't have the mental capacity to wrap my mind around doing different things. And one year I did stray from our curriculum, and I swore I would never. So how have you, especially coming into this like 4 years ago, how have you managed that, picking what best suits your kids' interests and stuff without driving yourself nuts?
Well, I think that video either has a quiz at the end of it, or like links to a quiz. It's been like 4 years now, 5 years now. But there's like a quiz, like the old fashion magazine quizzes, like what type of taco are you, or whatever. It's like, what flavor of homeschooling are you? And it's like your top 3 or something like that. And I just searched until I found one that combined all those 3. So I ended up finding My Father's World, and the fact that they combined Charlotte Mason and unit studies and classical, and more heavily on the Charlotte Mason. But then it's also unit studies, because like everything's on a theme. Like if you're learning about Egypt, for example, then in math you're learning about pyramids and geometry, and you cook a recipe from Egypt, like falafel or something. So that was just like, oh well, this one already exists, and then you can kind of a la carte that too, and mix in whatever you want, or you can just order up the box and it's all there, including like the paints and this music CD and whatever. So most of the time I just get it all in the box. And but now as the kids get older, of course, then Adele can give hand-me-downs. And then the other thing is, it's specialized to teaching multiple kids at multiple ages. So it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's started by Bible translators, like in the mission field. So they have like a bunch of kids, and they're all different ages. And then they also give this curriculum out to people, in different, run like mission schools. So they're basically doing classroom teaching with this, just a box of curriculum essentially. So it's really flexible, and then you just do like that unit study portion of it and the core history lesson as you move along a timeline, all together, and then you kind of split off to do your individual, so your language arts, your math at your different grade levels. So that's good. And this year we just started a co-op for the first time. That's kind of along those same lines. So far so good on that. We're only like 4 weeks into it, but
That's amazing, though. I'm so glad you did get into a co-op. Have you found that your girls have enjoyed homeschooling more since being a part of a co-op?
I think so. So our younger daughter Willow, she kind of is more like I was as a kid, as I've already said. Just kind of like you'll do whatever and you kind of can just go along to get along. And I mean, like, I went to Christian school, I went to homeschool, I went to public school, and I just like did great at all of them. It's like, whatever, you're going to do what you're doing. And we told you, and you're going to do it. So do it. But then our older daughter, I don't know if it's like her age or her personality or what it is, honestly, but I get a lot of complaints from her. And it's probably just me and my personality, or maybe the way that my face looks. I don't know. But that's been really discouraging because it's like, okay, well, I'm laying down my entire life and I'm also taking all of the arrows and flaming darts from every person you ever talk to who judges you and hates your guts now that you're a homeschooler. Try not to take it personal. But so that's really why the timing worked out. They actually just started doing it. It's really close to our house. It's actually hosted at our church. It's not run by our church, but it's hosted there. It's near us. We know the people, some of the people. And so I just basically did it for her because I'm like, okay, here's a chance for her to get a break from me and from her sister, be with people her own age, talk in their secret 13-year-old language. Um, and and then also our younger daughter, her best friend is there, so it's like a win-win. And then the only drawback is that I have to have a good attitude and I have to go and do my part and like volunteer in the other little kids classes and get along with everybody and be fun to be around and perky at 8 a.m. on a Monday. So far God's helping me not totally fail at that, but
There are some
I'm
things
kind of a
that
loner.
a special drive-through coffee treat can really
Yes.
encourage in our behavior and our personality. There are several mornings. I won't say I'm not a morning person because I love mornings and I adore them, but I don't like light or noise in the morning unless it's the sun peeking above the horizon and like, a
Yeah.
cacophony of migrating geese or something. But if you live in my house or you're under my roof and you're making any noise at all, it's, an egregious
Yes.
sin, might as well be. So there are
Yes.
several mornings where my children just get the hand, like it's too soon. You can't
Yes.
be making this noise.
Wait until the coffee is gone in the cup and then you may speak.
Yeah, multiple times I have said the words, I haven't even had a sip.
I remember when I realized that I was addicted to coffee, like an addict, and it was during that hardest year of my life I had mentioned, and I had to go and like train salespeople and pep them up at my different locations. And so obviously I had to go through a drive through and have an extra shot in my drink of coffee, of espresso, as I'm driving to the next thing to be like super peppy and motivating right first thing in the morning. And I remember just saying to the Lord, like, okay, I've realized this is an addiction and I'm sorry about that, but you know how this is and you know me, and I'm just really doing my best. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of way worse vices that I could have, like meth. I do know people who are addicted to meth. So can we just agree to disagree on me being addicted to this? And he was just kind of like, just,
There.
it's fine. Would you just calm down? Oh.
Yeah. With you homeschooling and the age, 13 and 10, there's something transitional, very transitional about both of those ages, I would say. And so it's kind of like a rough spot as far as being the parent of those ages. But what are you've made me laugh this whole conversation so far. What are some things that you guys do for fun, just to blow off steam, just to make memories or spend time together?
We love a good road trip. We've always loved camping. We like to go fishing. We like to just be together. We just like to spend time together, be outside, take a walk, be outdoors. Like in 2020, as I was saying, I was looking at all the different options for homeschool. Like, well, you could do it online. It could come on a memory stick. It could, be a combination. And I ended up the one that we ended up picking, I was just like, okay, well, this is all just paper books. And, as you know, with distance learning, it went from make sure that your kid is not looking at a screen of any type more than 15 minutes per day, or you are ruining their brain and they're going to be ruined for the rest of their life, to they need to be on a screen of some sort at least 16 hours a day, or you're doing something wrong. And it was just like, so I just decided, okay, we're doing the paper books. So at least during that school period, it's old school. I'm somebody who like doesn't do well with reading on the Kindle or anything. I just need to have the paper book so I can highlight and I can dog ear pages and I can have it and I can keep it and I can take it with me. And if there's no internet signal, it doesn't matter. So that worked out so well when we just went out west. We went out through Yellowstone. It was like pretty much nobody there, and I had never realized how gorgeous it was going to be there in the fall, because we went when the school year started, so everybody's in school and then everybody was like locked down. So it was phenomenal. We went as far as Idaho and we stayed out in Idaho with my in-laws for a while. And all the way we just did school all along the way, and most of the time we didn't have a phone signal even. And it didn't matter because they could just do their math in the back seat until we got to the next place and then hop out. That's just kind of how we roll. We usually like to just be spontaneous and not overly planned and go with the flow, and so it all works for us.
I love that. And I think that that's a perfect way to do those kinds of things. And those make the best memories, I feel like, where you have an idea of or a concept of what you want to do, but then you just kind of let it play out the way it does. And those are the best times and my favorite memories growing up, too. What about winter? You live in Minnesota. What do you guys do in winter?
My whole family's from here, always lived here. And the older I get, I don't know what in the world we're doing here. And I honestly am starting to think it's like a mental illness that anyone stays here, because all winter long, you're like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. What are we doing here? Let's get out of here. We got to move, get on Zillow right now, start looking. And then as soon as spring comes, that's all out the window. You totally forgot that. And now here you are again, until all of a sudden, right about now, where every time I see the birds migrating, I'm like, oh, I should probably book a plane ticket because we've got to get out of here. So, but by now it's like, well, my parents are getting old and I don't want to leave them, and I need to be responsible for caring for them. And I mean, you wait any longer and then your kids are like dating people. So I don't know. So here we are. For now, it is what it is. It honestly didn't used to even occur to me. I would walk in like from my car to work and I remember it thinking, okay, it's like 12 below and it's not affecting me one way or the other. I couldn't care less. Like, whatever. I'm used to it. Here we are now. To now where I'm hating every minute of it. And everyone's so happy that it's fall and the pumpkin spice stuff is out and they can wear sweatshirts, which I love those things too, but I just don't like what comes after that. So, we do all the things. We take the kids ice skating, we go ice fishing, we, go sledding, blah, blah, blah. But you can only handle so much of that. It's not as great as it's cracked up to be. So
Yeah, living in Fargo for
here
so
we go.
many
We're
years,
almost there.
winter was really, really hard for me. But then I remember we actually moved across the river to Minnesota. And that first year, it was 2017. I was just like, Lord, I can't take one more brutal winter. Can you just maybe lighten up this year? But instead of the winter lightening up, he really softened my heart toward winter. And now I actually find that I look forward to it.
Well, good for you. Come on to my house. Come cheer me up. I would love to move anywhere, but I'm kind of no. I say that a lot out loud, and nobody does anything. Like, nobody starts packing bags or anything. Here we are.
So you mentioned earlier, and I kind of want to circle back on it a little bit. You mentioned that you're at this stage where not only are you homeschooling and mothering your two girls, but you're also kind of providing care for your parents and stuff. And you're in this age in this generation where our time is split between two focuses. What has that been like for you, being a daughter and caring for your parents while also being a mother caring for your daughters?
It's really emotional, and I think may be more related to the way I look at things than what anyone else is doing or how old they are or whatever. Because I've just like been worried about my parents' well-being and my siblings' well-being and everybody being okay since I was little, as if that was like my responsibility or something. But that's just like, I don't know why I think like that. But so my when I was growing up, my when I was a kid, my dad was a truck driver, and so you know, with every time that he's in a blizzard or every time he's going up steep mountain roads or whatever, you can picture it, and you're just like on pins and needles and praying that he makes it home safe, and then he makes it home safe, and then you're like, but then he has to leave on Sunday night, and then he's going to be gone all week, and what's going to happen this week? So I mean, really, that was a lifelong ordeal. And even the other day, driving down the freeway behind some trucks, I just was like, Lord, thank you. Thank you that dad's retired. It feels so good to just know that he's home and he's okay. So, there's always something why somebody's not necessarily okay, but God's not unaware of those things. And I need to do a better job of trusting God and not feeling like everything's my responsibility. So I'm working on it.
Easier said than done a lot of the time. When you had this realization that this was your spot in life right now, aside from focusing on the responsibility of ensuring that everyone is okay, has there been anything that you were like, my parents did this for me, and I want to make sure that I pass on this same, whether it's memory or tradition or behavior or trait or whatever it is, to your own daughters? Has that come to the forefront lately?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Prior to 2020, we have like a ladies ministry at our church, and it's called Sisterhood. And what that looks like is, there's like a big, large group time. So the whole room. And then there's like basically 8 people at a table. And so I led one of those small tables, which is the small group portion of it, for 10 years. And I got into that when our oldest was a baby. And one of the times where my husband came home and was like, wow. And I was like, ah. And he's like, maybe you should join Sisterhood. Like he had heard them advertise it. And I was like, no, are you kidding me? That's the last thing I'm going to do. And anyway, I ended up giving in and going, and it was fantastic. And it was, nothing like I expected. It wasn't like your typical late group of ladies and catty and gossip or anything. It was fantastic. Obviously, I kept doing it for 10 years. But that was another thing that just came to a screeching halt kind of in 2020, because I mean the best we could do for our meetings was Zoom meetings, and no, most of the time most of them didn't really show up to that after a while and just started to peter off. And here, all of these people that I felt responsible for, it was just like, now what? And I just really, when I was like, am I supposed to homeschool? Is this the right thing? Am I going to do well at it? I just really felt very clearly that the Lord was like, listen, you have discipled these women for 10 years. And at a certain point, it's time to take the training wheels off and pedal your own bike. And now this is their opportunity to take the things that they've learned and apply them and exercise them in their own homes. And now I want you to turn that focus inward. And you have 2 women growing under your household. And it's time for you to disciple those women and focus your attention on them. And I was like, oh, I hadn't looked at it that way, because, I mean, they were even so much littler than they are now. Now it makes even more sense as they're growing older. So that has been what's kept me going when it's been hard, is because my parents poured their hearts into discipling me and making sure that I had people pouring into me and ministry growing up. I mean, like my mom traveled all over the state teaching women's Bible studies the whole time I was growing up. And I was along with her, sitting quietly on the floor by her. Sometimes not so quietly, maybe, but trying. And, and going along to, my dad would have a full gospel businessmen's association dinner, and I was like the only kid there because they just took me everywhere. In church, every time the doors were open, all those times, it was all going in. Even when it seemed like you're just a little kid or you're paying attention to something else or you're coloring or whatever, all those truths are going in. And so it's true. I really think that it's my job to disciple my girls now. And I just flatly tell them that all the time. I'm like, well, if you don't want to be here, that's fine. But God told me I'm supposed to be discipling you. So take it up with him.
I think that is such a marvelous answer. And usually when I wrap up an episode, I ask the guests to, encourage the other moms about something. But I think in this instance, I want to encourage you and say, I know it feels like you're in the thick of maybe, I guess I would call it kind of, I want to find a different way to phrase it. Because how I'm thinking of it, we always call it the hell in the hallway. Like when the doors are closed and another door hasn't opened yet. You're just kind of in this chaos in the hallway waiting for that next door to open. But I feel like from the moment you became a mother, when the Lord told you were going to be with your Ephraim blessing, and then wandering through that desert the next time, just waiting on him and his timing, I feel like that is just a recurring theme in your life. And I just want to encourage you in that what you are doing in discipling your girls now, it may seem like they're not into it, they're not really receiving it, they would rather be anywhere else. But I'm telling you that you are planting seeds that are going to bear so much fruit later on. And I just want to encourage you in that and keep you pressing on in that. And say well done in case you don't feel like you are.
Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, and
Absolutely.
when you're homeschooling,
absolutely, yeah.
Do you really ever get any encouragement if you're homeschooling? Sometimes not, sometimes never. My husband does encourage me all the time, and my mother-in-law really actually encourages me a lot. But my life verse now is Isaiah 8:18, which says, "Listen carefully, I and the children whom the Lord has given me are for signs and wonders in the earth, from the Lord of hosts who dwells on Mount Zion." So I think you're right, and I just say, listen, please rise up and call me blessed, like from Proverbs 31, before I have dementia or something. I want to be able to say, it happened.
Put that on the birthday wish list or the Christmas wish list or something. I think we all have that same longing, honestly, because we know that standard, we know that expectation laid out there, and I think we all kind of long for it, and it'll happen in its own way. I just want to say thank you for coming on the Motherhood Experience and sharing your story. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward to the update in a few years when we circle back to how things are going, right?
Thank you, Val. Thank you for sharing your time with me.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.